All right, hey, what's up everybody? Landon with LMR.com. Out in the studio today, I'm gonna have a chat session with you and bullet point some things to consider when purchasing a used engine. And kind of where we struck this topic was we recently put a Gen 2 Coyote Mustang engine into the 2004 Mustang GT that we've dubbed Keeping Comp. Due to where we found ourselves, the situation we were in, we're like, hey, you know what? Let's get this finished up, let's come back, let's add some talking points and try to cover as much as we can for all of you to make note of. And because whenever we had purchased the one that we got, thought we were getting a good deal. Well, once it got here, we bought it sight unseen. So once it got delivered, we started looking things over like, God dang, you know, this thing is a little worse off than what we thought. The intake manifold basically had to be replaced. It was trash. The entire IMRC section was completely destroyed, completely compromised. The heater tubes on the cylinder heads were busted. The water neck was missing. There was damage to the valve covers, damage to the VCT solenoids. One of the bolts on the timing cover broke off. That engine had the infamous Coyote engine block crack that happens at the ear on the bell housing area, and kind of just some generalized other items that nickeled and dimed us. Once we sat out and made our list of stuff, we're like, God dang, you know, what we thought was a decent deal has turned into not a decent deal. In all that, you know, looking at it from the outside, we're like, well, heck, what does the inside look like? So then, you know, we kind of had to turn our attention, pull everything apart. Valve covers came off, timing cover came off, oil pan came off. I mean, we basically had this thing down to a bare bones long block. We had the short block and we had the cylinder heads. And then once we kind of undressed all of it, there was plastic down in the cylinder head area. Well, that's not good. There was plastic down in the oil pan on what appeared to be timing chain material. Well, the timing chain on the engine was good. Well, where did any of that come from? We can make our assumptions. You know, we can kind of think that maybe the valve covers were switched out and there was trash in the valve cover that was switched out and got dumped down in the cylinder head. The same goes for maybe the timing cover or the oil pan. Well, regardless, it kind of had us worried of, well, hope we got a good one. And kind of in all that, you know, we rotated the engine, it turned over clean, pulled spark plugs, we looked at the cylinder walls, tops of the piston looked good, the cylinder walls looked good, and so we thought to ourselves, you know what, I think we're gonna be all right. Kind of got everything back together, finished the swap, started it up, and luckily everything turned out great. In all that, that's kind of led us here. If I'm buying an engine, no matter what, if you can buy it local, always prioritize that route. If you can't go that route, you know, you may live in a rural area, you don't have the luxury or you don't have the surrounding cities to look for an engine and you have to turn to an online resource, you know, make sure you're buying it from a reputable seller. I know that can only go as far as it can go. You know, there's kind of that unspoken trust between people. You dang sure gotta have some unspoken trust when you're buying it online, and there's even part of that when you're buying it local. But back to buying it local. If you can put your eyes on it, you can inspect it, that's always gonna be the better route. I think we can all agree on that. And if you can hear the engine running in a car before it's even pulled, that's even better. If you're not in that situation, you know, and you have kind of a fully dressed engine, ask the person that's selling it, like, hey, can we do a compression test? I brought my inexpensive borescope. Can I look down in the spark plug holes and take a look at the cylinder walls and the tops of the pistons? You know, you mind rotating it over and us pulling the oil pan and taking a look at that. And kind of the feedback you get from the seller, that may put you in a position of, hey, you know what, he's a little unsure of this engine, or he's kind of shying away from us doing that. Then that's probably a telltale sign, and your gut's gonna tell you that, you know what, I'm just gonna pass on this. I'll go to the next engine. Ask all those questions, consider all that stuff, because you can make a 4-page long list. There's gonna be something that you forget. We're human. There's the human element in everything. You may forget the simplest of things. You may have this elaborate checklist, this elaborate Bible that you've wrote of, I gotta look at this. And you look at all that and you get it home, and you're like, oh gosh darn it. The one thing I forgot to write, it's not on the engine, or it's broke, or name your scenario. Kind of trickling into the next thing is maybe what you're looking for, okay? I'm gonna kind of categorize this as old engine and newer or late model engine. And when I speak on behalf of old engine, I'm just speaking in terms of Ford. Name your other makes and models, you know, Chevrolet, Mopar, whatever. But like this small block Ford in front of me, this 351 out of a Night Bronco. This is, for the most part, a complete takeout engine. You're gonna have different sellers, you're gonna have different buyers. You know, you may be somebody that's buying this 351 because you just need the block. You don't care about the heads, you don't care about anything else. You're either gonna throw all this stuff in the trash, or you're gonna go put it on the parts bin. You know, you may just need the power steering bracket. You may just need valve covers. Everybody's situation and buying habits is going to be a little bit different. That kind of goes for both engines, old and new, but I think more or less in the old engine aspect of this, you know, you're not necessarily looking at this like, yep, I just need to look a few things over. I'm gonna go put this in my Bronco. I'm gonna go put this in my Fox body. That's not necessarily the case for older engines. Whereas newer engines, that is the case. But that kind of takes us back to our Coyote situation. You know, we were going into that thinking, hey, you know what? Worst case scenario, we've got to replace a few things. It's a used engine. You know, we may have to replace wearable items such as gaskets. You know, a water neck's inexpensive. Yeah, that stuff will nickel and dime you in a way. But I mean, if you're talking, you know, a couple bucks in gaskets, that's just hot rodding 101. But the stuff we had to do wasn't cool. We had to go the extra mile to make our engine right for what we were using it for. So newer engines, you're looking at those as kind of quote unquote drop-in ready. Depending on what you're buying, you know, you may be buying some high mileage stuff that, you know, it's gonna have to be dismantled, looked at, put back together. You know, you may be buying an engine in pieces that you're just going to build your own engine. You know, you're gonna go source your own crankshaft, rods, pistons, do all that stuff. So you would probably look for an engine in that state, not necessarily something that's turnkey, but that all goes back to what you're finding, what's available, you know, because at the end of the day, you can sit here and scroll forever, you know, on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or, you know, wherever it is that you're buying the engine. You're just gonna have to go with whatever you think is gonna be right for your build and what you're using that engine for. Didn't really talk about anything of things that you may not find just due to the space. You know, you may not find a crack in a block. You know, you're not gonna carry around your Magnaflux tool, you know, and start Magnafluxing an engine block at somebody's house. I mean, you might have done that or you might do that, but that's slim to none. And there's gonna be areas on these engines that you just can't look at, okay? Yeah, you can pull all the stuff apart you want to, and that's all gonna be up to the discretion of whoever's selling the engine. You know, they're like, hey man, if you're just tire kicking, you're not taking my stuff apart. You know, I'll let you pull a valve cover, I'll let you pull a spark plug and do a compression test and look at the cylinder walls, but outside of that, no, you're not taking this thing apart. So you always have to keep that in your back pocket as well. You know, you're only gonna be able to do so much when buying one of these used, and all the underlying things that may not surface until you just start taking things apart. And worst case scenario, you do go the stretch of getting everything put back together. You know, you've replaced the components you wanted to replace, it's sorted, it's in the vehicle that you're wanting it in, you start it up and the sucker makes noise. It happens. I'm guaranteeing it. Probably some of you watching this video are gonna say, yep, here's my story and here's what happened. So if you have those, please share them with us. We love reading y'all's comments, and I think there's a lot of value in providing that feedback. And people that do watch these videos and they kind of scroll through the comments, because I'm a comment surfer myself, I like looking at what other people have to say and looking at their stories as well. And kind of one of the cool, I guess, aspects to all this is, you know, the stuff that you may not know or find until you get the engine apart. You know, it may be the better block, or it may be the better piston, or it may be the better rod, the better camshaft. Name your component, you know, that the enthusiasts chase in certain models and certain years, because that stuff has happened. You know, you'll buy stuff and you're like, oh shoot, I didn't even see this, or that, man, this has got the such and such on it that I didn't think of, and the seller didn't know what he had. So there's always that cool little aspect of buying used engines as well. All right, so recapping all this, what to look for when buying a used engine. We can sit here and talk all day. I think you and I both know that. There's a lot of components on different engines. You know, we'll start getting small block Ford, 4.6 2-valve, 3-valve, 4-valve, all the Coyote stuff. But in a nutshell of all this, wanted to talk about kind of the story of what led us to this video, kind of split the engines up into their categories, and then kind of just discuss some of the things that you want to approach and you want to look for when buying a used engine. And kind of like I said earlier, if you can, I would always probably prioritize a local purchase. You can put your eyes on it. You know, you can kind of feel the person out that's selling the engine, kind of read the room, get a vibe, see what's happening. But if you can't do that, I totally get it. You're gonna find yourself in that situation where you do have to purchase, you know, online. And if you do, you know, make sure they have a lot of pictures. Make sure they have some good information. Make sure they have a warranty. If you're buying it from, let's say, somebody that just parts out wrecked vehicles or just parts out stuff in general. And then kind of the lingering piece to all this is if you're buying it from a seller, you're buying it online, you know, make sure they have a warranty, kind of backing up what it is that they're selling and giving you, the buyer, just a little bit of peace of mind, even if the dang warranty's 30 days, you know, enough time for you to kind of comb through it, look it over, you know, and if there's something is wrong, you know, you can reach out to that seller and say, hey, look, I know y'all sold me this, here's y'all's whatever, you know, here's what's going on with my engine, and hopefully, you know, they'll get you taken care of. that's going to be a wrap on this one. Hope y'all appreciated it. Like I said, just a good little chat sesh. Tell us your story of buying used engines. Give us something crazy, of a part you may have found on something you bought, or even a horror story. I think it's good to get those off our chest every once in a while and kind of beat the keyboard up a little bit on a situation that we had found ourselves in at some point in our life. As always, if y'all find value in what we do, please consider subscribing to the channel, like the video, turn on notifications. Until we see you in the next one, for all things engine, see you right here at The Real Enthusiast, LMR.com.